Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial Group. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586 752 7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And while at my website, click on the podcast page to check out our past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Okay, according to a Kiplinger article, a 10-year checklist for retirement planning, by 2030, one out of every five Americans will be retired. In fact, by that day, every baby boomer will be older than 65, and the front edge of Generation X will be hitting retirement age. So, if you're in your 50s right now, retirement is barreling straight at you like a fully loaded freight train. And while you're still at an age where you're working, raising kids, saving, and even investing, it can be challenging to prioritize your retirement. So, if you haven't been diligent about adequately preparing your finances for retirement, this period of life can be downright overwhelming. But thankfully, the Kiplinger article has some tips and insights that I'm excited to share today. But before we begin discussing today's topic, let me introduce my co host, Tony Shore, whose rock music knowledge is so broad it crosses all generations, just like the need for retirement planning. Hey, Tony, how you doing, buddy?
It is one of my better areas of
Yes,
expertise when it comes to trivia and things like that. 80s music trivia, 60s, 70s, and 80s, whether it's the Beach Boys, the Beatles,
I love it.
throughout the 80s, and prog rock and rock bands, Boston Rush, Yes, Pink Floyd, some of my favorites right there. But yes, that is kind of an area as a DJ on the radio and then working for record companies doing radio promotions. Music is kind of my bag, but
It is.
it is funny how you tied that in, and we're talking about a retirement checklist today. But you know me, I love music. I'm a record collector,
Yes, you
and
are.
yeah,
Mr. Vino.
yep, I've got a lot of vinyl, a lot of CDs. Yeah, I love records. But how about you, Albert? How have you been? I know we had a long weekend
Mhm.
last week. Did you get
Yeah.
a chance to get out and enjoy yourself a little bit?
Did, having family over and friends and, was out on the waters a little bit, barbecuing, enjoying what summer brings us. So, it was a
Yep.
very nice weekend. How about yourself and your family?
Yeah, had a good one. We got to a lot done. We actually did some work outside. I actually
Ah.
washed windows and screens
Oh,
this I
wow.
know it doesn't sound like too much fun, but we got her done and
Good.
got to see family for the fourth too. So that was good. But we're talking about a diverse musical taste, but you
Mhm.
also need a thorough and diverse financial strategy, right?
You do. You do. In fact, let's go ahead and begin. The article from Kiplinger begins by explaining what you should be doing at the 10-year mark and move forward until you're, well, basically a year away from retirement, Tony. So if you're 10 years away from retirement, folks, you're likely older than 50, which means you can contribute more money to your tax advantage retirement plans. So this year, the IRA and 401k contribution limits is $30,500 in a 401k or 403b and $8,000 in an IRA outside of your work. Now, additionally, if your company offers a matching contribution, be certain that you are contributing enough to trigger that match. And when you find yourself, let's say, a decade away from retirement, it's also a good time to begin considering what you want your retirement to look like. Where will you live? How will you keep yourself occupied? If you're married, well, do you and your spouse have a similar vision? Contemplating questions like that isn't something that should be left until you're cutting your retirement cake, Tony.
Well, yeah, and if you wait to start planning some of these things out until you're retired or right before you're retired, it's probably a little late. right?
Yeah, it is. But now let's talk about if you're 9 years away, Tony, all right, from retirement. Your next checklist item should be fine tuning your investment allocations with the assistance of your financial services professional. Now, the article also suggests that this could be the right moment to move your investments from stocks to bonds to better protect your nest egg. Now, it uses the rule which is called of 120 as an example. Now, with this, basically what you do is you simply start subtract your age from 120 to determine the maximum amount you should have in stock. So if you're 55, well, you should keep 65% of your portfolio in stocks with the rest in bonds. Now, if let's say you're running behind on your retirement savings goals, you may want to meet with your financial services professionals to discuss putting yourself on the higher end for stocks to try and achieve greater growth.
Yeah, and we all want more growth,
Hmm.
obviously, and this strikes me as a place where we want to be really careful, right? With
Oh, you
this.
got it, Tony. Yes. In fact, if you don't have the savings you'd like, it may be very tempting to go too far with your higher risk investments, Tony. But doing it could be disastrous. As I always note when investing comes to up during our show here, we can't get too far into this topic because we just don't have the time to address everything in one episode. But investing comes with many risks and rewards, and there are also a vast sea of rules and regulations to also deal with. All of which is to say that if investing is part of your strategy, you should, well, only be doing so with the help of a financial services professional.
Right. I mean, investing can be emotional, but a financial services professional such as yourself can take the emotion out of it and provide that level headed, experienced guidance, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you for calling me level headed, Tony. Uh,
Oh, yes.
Well,
Yep.
now who doesn't like, let's say, a good treasure hunt, Tony? Yes. Year 8 on the checklist urges you to grab your map and shovel and go looking for money you may have forgotten about. I see this all the time, in fact.
Mm.
And I know what you're thinking, but the truth is, people forget about money far more often than you think. Now, think about every job you've had. Is there a chance that you left behind some retirement savings, maybe some pension or a retirement account? How about stock? Now, the article cites a study from Capitalize, which is a tech platform, which found roughly 29.2 million people have forgotten 401ks containing an average balance of more than $56,000. Now, the good news is that you can roll your old retirement plans into your current workplace plan or give it into an individual retirement account or what we call an IRA, thereby making it easier to track and manage all your money.
Wow. I'm just trying to get my head around the fact that 29 million people, more than 29 million people out there in America have forgotten about 401ks with more than an average of $50,000 in them.
And that's
I mean, if
crazy.
you have multiple jobs and you forget about a 401k or didn't realize you'd been contributing, because some now it's automatic for a lot
Correct.
of
After
companies.
3 months. Yeah.
And I have to admit, I can't believe that many people have forgotten, but I once found a 401k I had forgotten about. So
Oh, there you
it's a
go.
pleasant surprise. It didn't have $50,000 in it, but
Well, it's
it
like
was
finding the
nothing.
dollar in your jeans, right?
Yeah. Well, it was more than $1 though, too. I'll tell you
Well,
that.
that's good.
So
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, and you know what? You have to understand it's not just only 401ks, Tony. Open all your bank accounts, even the one you opened when, let's say, you were a teenager and and you got your first job. Is there money just sitting in them and not earning much interest? Work with your financial service professional to put that money into a high interest savings account, especially in today's times, or a certificate of deposit. You can also purchase, let's say, a 10-year CD and lock in a guaranteed 4% interest rate on money that would otherwise be, well, idle. So understand that that's what you want to look for. And then lastly, year 8 on your checklist is also a good time to get a thorough physical and to get advice on improving your diet and exercise routine. Because remember, you can save all that money, but you got to make sure you're there, Tony, right? Physically and health. And bear in mind that taking close care of your body and mind may go a long way in protecting that nest egg you've worked so hard to build up, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's smart. And I just want to take this time to remind our listeners, if they want to set up that complimentary, no cost, no obligation consultation, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, listeners, you know what? You can visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, or call my office at 586-752-7008 to discuss how we can answer your questions, address your concerns about your retirement checklist, your retirement strategy, or any other parts of your financial strategy. Remember, it's our goal to help you prepare for the retirement you've worked so hard for.
All right. And during today's show, Albert, you've been talking about a 10-year retirement checklist,
Mhm.
steps we should begin taking about a decade out from retirement, saving and planning as much as possible, things like that. What's next on the agenda?
Well, go back to the Kiplinger article, A 10-Year Checklist for Retirement Planning. It now suggests making plans and then trying them out as your 7-year check mark. So basically, this is the moment when you want to begin giving a lot of thought to your potential retirement budget. What's your vision for the ideal retirement? Now, how much do you think it's going to cost you? Consider everything you'll have to pay for during retirement, including housing, vehicles, food, travel, hobbies, insurance, and taxes. And don't forget about things you're not spending on money right now, but will be in retirement. For example, Medicare Part B premiums, which this year runs about $170.70 a month and typically increases annually because of rising healthcare costs. Also, meet with your financial service professional to discuss the possibility of maybe eventually purchasing a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medigap plan plus Medicare Part D plans for your prescriptions. And while these private insurance plans may be necessary to address out of pocket expenses that Medicare doesn't cover, they're going to cost you. And then finally, your financial service professional, well, they'll have some insight into what these options cost and whether they may be a fit for you and your financial strategy.
Right. And Albert, you've said it before. Some people think that Medicare is an entirely free program, right? That you
Yes,
just enroll and that's it. But as you just explained, that is not the case. There are still
not at all.
premiums,
Yes.
deductibles,
Yep.
co-pays, and the gaps that you have to fill with either supplemental or
Yeah, and and
advantage
and and
plans. Yeah.
and don't always think that because you keep your premium low that that's the best plan. Remember, you have a higher out of pocket cost then as well. So keep
Right.
all of that into consideration when talking and figuring out your Medicare.
Sure.
Now, let's talk about the 6-year spot on your checklist. It's for analyzing your income picture and determining if you'll have enough to not just survive, but thrive during retirement, have the best years of your life. Now, look at your current budget and estimate your likely retirement income, well, to see if it will handle everything. You may consider using the 4% rule here. Simply multiply your anticipated retirement balance at retirement by 4% to see how much you may want to consider taking out each year. For example, if you anticipate, let's say, a $1 million portfolio, this rule anticipates that you could reasonably withdraw $40,000 a year from your savings with needed adjustments for inflation, obviously. But add this amount to your other expected retirement income sources, including, let's say, a pension and Social Security. Then meet with your financial services professional to determine if your savings and income sources are on track to help you maintain your preferred lifestyle during retirement. Oh, lost you, Tony.
Well, and the 4% rule is just one option for determining if you'll have enough income during retirement.
Of
I
course.
think listeners should review their income picture with yourself and get a plan in place.
I totally agree with you. That's just one strategy. What you want to basically try to do, folks, is creating that mailbox money.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the 5-year spot on your checklist. Now, we're halfway there, and it's all about rolling up your sleeves and gaining a thorough understanding of where your money comes from and where it goes. This may also be the ideal time to begin considering when you want to begin taking Social Security. Now, those payments can begin as soon as you're 62, but the longer you wait, the more you'll get every month. So, for example, at 62, you might get, let's say, $1,400 a month, $2,000 a month at 67, and $2,480 a month when you're 70. So, remember, once you file for Social Security, you're locked in. So, really go through all your options with your financial services professional. Now, the 5 year mark may also be a good time to tackle high interest debt like credit cards because you're still bringing in consistent income from your job. Now, ridding yourself of high interest debt can send you into retirement on a high note. And also consider how you may address potential long term care costs too during retirement. Now, even if you're in excellent health now, it's difficult to predict what your health will be like when you're in your 80s or 90s. And as we've discussed before, long term care is costly. In fact, the article notes that right now, a private room in a nursing home runs about $9,000 a month, or a little more than $108,000 a year, Tony.
Yeah, and $108,000 a year could eat up that nest egg in a
Oh,
hurry,
yes,
right? I mean,
yes.
obviously, but thankful building a long-term care strategy, again, with someone like yourself, a financial professional, may be able to provide the care you need and also protect your assets then, correct?
Definitely, definitely. Now, while traditional long-term care insurance, Tony, are a good fit for some people, others may benefit more from, let's say, asset-based long-term care, which is life insurance that includes certain long-term care benefits. Now, these policies provide, let's say, a smaller death benefit than, let's say, your traditional life insurance, but they also offer features that may guard your assets against the negative financial effects of long-term care expenses. And if it turns out you never need long term care, well, you don't have to sweat the idea of spending premiums on something you'll never use because your loved ones may still receive a death benefit.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of people are turned off by the idea of long-term care insurance because of the use it or lose it factor. They pay all
Hmm.
this money in, it's not
Hmm.
cheap. So, asset-based long-term care insurance sounds like it might hit the bullseye for those with that specific concern. And I know there have been a lot of developments in ways to cover long-term care or insure for it that are outside that traditional old long-term care insurance.
Yes, I think that's a great breakdown, Tony. In fact, most people don't enjoy the idea that someday their health will likely decline a bit, perhaps to the point they need certain care in their home, or perhaps to the point they need to move into an assisted living facility. But coming up with a strategy before you're retired and are still in a good health, well, means the decision is made and you can cross it off your retirement to do list and instead focus on, guess what? Your thoughts on travel, new hobbies, and leisurely afternoons on the golf course. That's
Yeah, there
my
you go.
favorite.
Yeah, yeah, look at you, basically a pro there, scratch golfer.
We won't go that far, buddy.
Well, during the show today, you've been talking about steps we need to take once
Hmm.
you're 10 years away, then 6. What do you wanna talk about next?
Well, let's continue with that Clippinger article, 10-year checklist for retirement planning. And it's now eager to break down, which including the 4 year mark on your retirement planning checklist,
Yep.
which is ensuring that you're both financially and medically covered. Now, the article explains that this may be a good time to meet with your financial services professional to discuss investing some of your portfolio, maybe into an annuity. Okay. An annuity is an insurance contract that can turn your savings into reliable income during retirement. They may also be able to boost your savings in these final few years before you retire, often with a guaranteed return and some degree of protection against possible market losses. However, they do have significant surrender charges if you cancel before the contract ends. So, therefore, it's essential that you don't purchase an annuity unless you're certain you can commit to the timeline. Now, the 4 year spot on the checklist also includes the need to secure health care if you plan to retire before turning 65, which is when you qualify for Medicare. So perhaps your employer will offer a COBRA, which permits you to extend your current healthcare benefits for up to 18 more months. But be aware, however, that your premiums will be more expensive because your employer will no longer be covering some of the costs. And if your spouse will work longer securing benefits through their employer, well, that may be an option that's worth purchasing an Affordable Care Act policy. So premiums are based on your age and are costlier if you're nearing retirement.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when's the best time to do it? 20 years ago. Second best time today. So, again, a comprehensive healthcare strategy for retirement is another great reason to work with you and your team there at Kaizen Wealth Management and Financial Group. I just think that's so important. You want a robust financial healthcare strategy.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Now, let's go ahead and begin talking about 3-year spot on your retirement, Tony. Simply give your retirement a trial run. What do I mean? Well, for example, if let's say moving from your home on the Great Plains to sunny Southern California is part of your retirement dreams, well, spend time traveling to the area, not just in the hot spots, but the off the beaten path spots. How's the healthcare down there, the food scene, the people, the environment, you know? And then after a few visits, maybe you'll change your mind, or perhaps it'll be everything you'd imagine. Either way, the important thing is to try it out before you make a large financial and personal commitment. And here's where you should also meet with your financial service professional to consider converting maybe a traditional 401k or an IRA into a Roth version. You'd pay taxes up front on the amount you transfer, but your future withdrawals would be tax free. And then it may be a prudent move if you begin working less and fall into, let's say, a lower tax bracket. This isn't the right step for everyone, though, so just be careful. And so be sure to only entertain this option in partnership with your financial services professional. Okay. And then lastly, in your 3-year mark from retirement, it's also a good moment to review your estate plan to make sure everything is up to date, especially all your designated beneficiaries on your accounts, retirement plans, life insurance policies. Your designated beneficiaries supersede what's stated in your will. And then finally, reach out to an estate attorney to discuss a financial power of attorney, a living will, and an advanced healthcare directive.
Yeah, and we've talked about beneficiaries a lot in the past on the show, making sure they're updated and making
Mhm.
sure your family understands your wishes. That's going to be a load off anyone's mind.
Oh, big time, big
Yeah.
time. Now, let's get to the 2-year mark. We're almost done here, Tony. And that is for giving your retirement strategy one final thorough review. Sit down with your financial service professional and discuss your current goals and visions, as well as your retirement budget, anticipated income, asset allocation, insurance plans to make sure everything remains, well, aligned with your needs. And if your savings is running, let's say, a little short, you may want to consider pushing your retirement out for maybe another year or two. And additionally, you should weigh the possibility of beginning a phase in retirement 2 years from now rather than completely retiring. Reducing your hours will keep some income coming in and will also help you ease into retirement in a way that will make the overall lifestyle adjustment a little bit easier. And then a phase in retirement may be even smarter move if you want to retire before you turn 65 because, well, it not only keeps an income stream, but it will also allow you to maintain your current healthcare benefits as long as you work your company's minimum number of weekly hours to qualify for benefits.
All right. Some great points there. And I guess that brings us to the 1 year mark. What do you have
Uh-oh.
for us?
Well, the big moment, Tony. Think about how you want to end your career. Make sure your colleagues understand what you're working on and how your task will be transferred to them. Game plan for the last month of your salary or your final bonus. You may want to use that bonus, let's say, to pay off a car or a credit card debt before you retire. And when you're a year away from retirement, Tony, chances are you'll be a mixture of nerves and excitement, which means it's essential to keep in regular contact with guess who? Your financial services professional, folks.
Yep. Well, a great show today. Is there anything else you want to add, Albert, before we wrap it up?
Folks, visit my website, www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com, Kaizen, or call my office, 586-752-7008. Discuss how we can answer your questions, address your concerns about your retirement. And remember, it's our goal to help you prepare for retirement that you've worked so hard for so you can own your retirement, folks.
All right. Well, great show today, Albert. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care, everybody.